In this video, we're going to look before we apply textures to our 3D model itself. We're going to just look at, well, how do textures actually work on things, and how can we change the scale of them, and how can we edit them? Because the wooden components here just don't appear to be the right scale for this V block here, unless of course the V block is utterly huge, which it's clearly not going to be. And this will be a first way of understanding exactly how images or textures is applied to 3D models. So we're going to look at this plane to begin with. Now, first of all, we just need to look at the fact that this plane, if I just go to say a simple wireframe, is just got 4 edges, 1, 2, 3, 4, and 4 corners. And the corners, remember, are called vertices. So 1, 2, 3, 4 of those vertices just there. There is absolutely no thickness to this whatsoever. It's an infinitely small plane, and the computer has applied an image to that flat plane so that it can actually, make it look somewhat realistic. And it needs to take any 3D model needs to be based into a flat plane, which gets really interesting later on for the 3D model, which is clearly not flat. But for this flat plane here, it's not too much of an issue. What we do here is we apply this essentially like a big sticker, and it's called a UV map. So the coordinates U and V are meant to represent the height and width of the image being applied, because obviously the letters X, Y, and Z are being used by the computer for the coordinates. So we call it UV. So what we want to do here is we want to edit the scale of this wood on here. To do that, we're going to make sure that our plane is selected and change this to edit mode. So this is now ready to be edited. And what I'm going to do here is I'm going to split my screen so I can see what I'm doing. And I'm going to change this screen up here to be what we call the UV editor. Now, right now, it's showing the bump map image. Basically, all the images inside the render will be shown up here. And we've only got 3 right now, and we're more interested in the color map. What I'm going to do is I'm going to press the letter A, and that's going to select the 4 vertices of our plane. And now I want to scale things down. Now there's a wee small arrow just to the side here that allows you to move things and rotate things and scale things. So you could scale things just by using your mouse, and you can see it starts to impact things there. Or I can press S on the keyboard to scale, and you can see it's scaling the plane vertices in relation to the image. And as you can see, as I make it smaller here, the wood panels appear to be getting bigger because we're using less of the wood itself. Now you can go so small where the image texture may become pixelated and essentially useless. And this is where you get particular resolutions of texture maps. You may get them as 1K textures, 2K, 3K, 4K, 8K textures are becoming more popular as well. And basically the higher resolution, the more useful that texture is going to be for these sorts of things. But there's obviously a penalty with file size. So I'm just going to adjust this so that we get a scale that visually looks good. And this will be affecting the bump map and the specular map data as well. So that's not too bad. I'm pretty happy with that just there. Come back down to this mode. I'll set this to rendered mode, and let's just have a wee look. So I've still got the nice roughness to the image itself, and the light bouncing nicely off the wood, and the scale feels a lot nicer, a lot more realistic. So I can close this panel off just here. Okay, so we now want to start applying materials to our 3D models. To do that, I'm going to select, first of all, I'm going to go back to object mode. And you can press a wee short key, as if you press the tab key in your keyboard, you'll jump between edit mode and object mode. Object mode allows you to select objects. Edit mode allows you to edit those objects, and that will become useful later on. So I've got this block selected down here, and I'm going to go to my beach ball and I'm going to add a material. And what I'm going to do is, like previously, I'm going to select a base color material by selecting the small target circular icon. Click image texture. It goes purple because, well, it's warning us it's not got an image loaded. So I'm going to say open, and I'm going to open up a material just here. And I'm going to look for the color map of the metal just here and say open. Now, as soon as you do that, well, nothing. It goes a sort of greyish colour, but it's certainly not applied that metal texture, and it certainly doesn't look realistic just yet. And if you look over here, we're not too happy with that. It's not particularly great just at that point. So what's happening? Well, the computer hasn't applied the material to this yet because it doesn't know how. It's a solid flat model. We need to go to edit mode, and when you go to edit mode just here, it's going to show you all the edges. You can obviously see the faces, and you can see the vertexes just here. And vertexes are really powerful, and you can do some fantastic things. But essentially what we want to do here is take this solid model and unwrap it. And we're going to be looking at that later on in future videos, how do we unwrap things nice and neatly. But for right now, we've just got the whole object selected here. I'm going to go to UV and tell it to unwrap it. So you'll now see the material has been applied to this. If I then just go back to object mode, we can see we've got the material here. It doesn't feel too great just yet because, yet again, we've only got the image flatly applied to this. So if we're wanting to start making this more realistic, we again need to start editing that texture. So I'm going to split my screen here, and I'm going to go back to the shader editor. So within the shader editor, I'm on object mode, and I've got this object selected so I can start editing things. So I'm going to add in a new image texture, and I'm going to add in, if I just go to search and type in bump map texture just here, that will be connected to the roughness of this model, and that will be connected to the height. And now we need to open up our bump map of this, which is available again from designclass.co.uk. We want to drop this to non-color data, and we can start adjusting how this will look. If I just drop this to the fully rendered mode here, we can start adjusting how rough that is going to start to appear. Okay, again, we're wanting to add a specular map for where the light is going to bounce on things. So I'm going to go to add image texture, and apply that to the specular, and I'm going to open up the specular map for where light is going to bounce on our object. And this is where we can now start playing just a little bit to get the actual feelings of this we're wanting. But there's one final setting to start to make this look a little bit more metallic, and that is under the principal BSDF shader. We want to turn this all the way up to metallic mode. So by turning this to number 1 and putting up to metallic mode, it's now going to start making the reflections work a lot better, just like the real metal. So we're getting this nice dark rusted metal from the image texture. We're getting the roughness appearing just right, and I'm really happy with that. So I can close this back off, and we've got that image texture just there. Now, just again on the panel, it's a good idea at all times just to take that, and I'm going to call it worn metal. So now that we've got that applied, we can take that same texture and apply it to other parts. So I'm going to take this component, drop the small beach ball menu down here and say, well, that's also going to be worn metal. I could take this one over here and also make that worn metal. I could take them all. There's absolutely no reason why I couldn't take them all and make them all worn metal here. But with that being the same sort of metal here, it may not look just the way we want it to be. So we might look at playing with a different metal just here. So I'm going to take this shoe component and I'm going to add another metal. I'm going to call this second metal. I'm going to go to base color, make that an image texture again. Open this up and there's a metal 2 to this one. Again, the computer will not apply that just yet until we go back to edit mode. Press A to select all the vertices and go UV unwrap. It will now apply that image texture to this, and we can see that just there. But this time we're not going to bother with a bump map. We're going to pretend this has got a smooth metal. I'm just going to take the metallicness of that, put it all the way up, and I'm going to take the roughness of this metal and turn it down somewhere about the 0.25 sort of region, and that will start to get a little bit of reflections on things. So if I come back out of edit mode and back into object mode, I can take that there. Maybe we'll turn the roughness maybe just up a little bit more in that, just to get a little bit less happening. Okay, so I've got that metal just there. I'm going to go to this component, select second metal for that component, go to the handle, select that as a second metal, go to this one and apply that as second metal. So now we've applied these metallic textures to each of the components and we're done with the texturing.